So look at Anthony Ryder from South Lyon, Michigan, recently selected as the Lions 2020 Fan of the Year. He has a passion about sports broadcasting.
With the 112th selection in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Detroit Lions select Amon-Ra St. Brown, wide receiver, USC. One pride, baby! Yeah! What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Detroit Lions video. The Detroit Lions had a very controversial draft, right? There was a lot of people saying that this draft was very strong, and there's a lot of people saying this draft is incredibly weak, saying the position value is horrible, and then there's people saying that the actual football players are actually quite good. Now, although it is just a month into these rookies' NFL career, we are starting to get an opportunity to look at how good these players are, how good these players can be for the Detroit Lions in the roles that they're going to play, at least for the time being in the 2023 season. Although we don't know how these careers are going to end, we don't know what the future looks like for some of these rookies that have yet to play, we do have a look at some of the rookies we have drafted, and we do see how they are affecting the 2023 Detroit Lions. So after a month of play, after a quarter of their first season is officially in the books, I wanted to take a look back at some of these rookies, take a look at how they're affecting the team, whether or not they were the right pick at the time, and whether or not Bright Holmes truly had as poor of a class as a lot of analysts originally said. So with that being said, let's start off with a quick recap of the 2023 NFL Draft. At the 12th overall pick, after trading away pick number 6 and acquiring several picks in return, the Detroit Lions selected Jahmyr Gibbs, the playmaking running back from Alabama. 6 picks later, at the 18th overall selection, they selected off-ball linebacker Jack Campbell from the University of Iowa to be the future starting middle linebacker for this team. They then came back early on day 2, going back to the University of Iowa, selecting Sam Laporta, the number 1 tight end from that offense, and the next great tight end to come out of the University of Iowa. They traded up to the 40th overall pick a few picks after that, selecting Brian Branch, the playmaking safety / slot cornerback from the University of Alabama. They traded up into the 3rd round, early into the 3rd round, to select Hendon Hooker, the quarterback from Tennessee, and then traded into the 3rd round again to select Broderick Martin, the nose tackle from Western Kentucky. On day 3, the Detroit Lions had just 2 picks left, so they went with guard Colby Sorrell from William and Mary, as well as wide receiver Antoine Green from the University of North Carolina. This was a very controversial draft at the time, a draft that a lot of people looked to positional value. They looked at They looked at not as valued positions as a knock on this team and really ignored the playmakers and the football players that the Detroit Lions ended up walking away with. So let's start off at the very top. Let's take a look at Jahmyr Gibbs, a player that has sparked a ton of controversy since the moment his name was announced on stage. Jahmyr Gibbs is off to a pretty good start of his NFL career. Through 4 games, Jahmyr Gibbs has had 39 rushing attempts for 179 yards and has yet to find the end zone, but he has also been impactful in the receiving game, having 14 receptions for 70 yards and again failing to reach the end zone. All in all, he has had 53 touches through 4 games. That is about an average of 13 to 14 touches per game, having 249 total yards and averaging 4.7 yards every single time he touches the ball. He's only had 1 real game where he has been the bell cow. He's only had 1 real game where he has been the primary back getting all the carries. That was, of course, week 3 versus the Atlanta Falcons, where he had 17 carries for 80 yards and I believe 1 reception for 2 yards. He outgained Bijan Robinson on the day. Although I think that they are both very, very good running backs, Jahmyr Gibbs was the better one on that day. Now, a lot of people are very concerned about Jahmyr Gibbs. There's a lot of fantasy owners and there's a lot of Lions fans saying that this was a poor pick because of the lack of usage. And simply, I don't think that is to be the case. A very comparable player to Jahmyr Gibbs as far as draft status, positional value, and of course what they do well is Christian McCaffrey, one of the highest paid running backs in the NFL, who is a rookie after being the 8th or 9th overall pick from the University of Stanford by the Carolina Panthers in 2017. Through his first 4 games, saw just 53 touches for 296 yards. Now, Christian McCaffrey was used a little bit more as a receiver than Jahmyr Gibbs was, but Jahmyr Gibbs is being used a little bit more as a running back. His first 4 games, Christian McCaffrey had just 50 163 touches for 296 yards and 0 scores to his name. He had just 89 yards on the ground, but did have 207 yards through the air. He's a player that, again, has had a lot of longevity, has stayed healthy for a lot of his career, had some injury stints here and there, but for the most part has stayed relatively healthy. And going into the middle of his second contract, he is still one of the premier backs in the NFL, whereas you can see some of the other backs from that time, guys like Ezekiel Elliott, Leonard Fournette, the bell cows that have gotten 200 to 300 carries a season, have started to slowly decline. I think the Detroit Lions are trying to give Jahmyr Gibbs a career arc similar to what Christian McCaffrey has had, involve him as a receiver, involve him as a change of pace back, allow him to be effective after David Montgomery, the bell cow, wears down the defense, but keep his longevity very, very well. I think Jahmyr Gibbs was a good pick. Could you go back and say, oh, but you could have had Jalen Carter, who's dominating the league. You could have had Christian Gonzalez, who's dominating the league. Yes, but I don't think that just because some other players are playing well, that diminishes Jahmyr Gibbs' ability any less. I think Jahmyr Gibbs is still a good pick. I think he's still a great talent, and I do believe his usage will continue to go up as it has done over the first month of the season. And by the end of the year, he might even be more impactful than he already is right now. But even if he's not, if he finishes the season right now, he's on pace for over 1,000 total yards. He is ready to essentially be the Detroit Lions' DeAndre Swift replacement and be a little bit better. I think it was still a very solid pick. Moving on to the second selection, that would be rookie Jack Campbell from the University of Iowa. Now, despite being less involved on the defense than Jahmyr Gibbs is on the offensive side of the ball, people don't seem to have the same backlash towards the Jack Campbell pick as they do towards the Jahmyr Gibbs pick. Jack Campbell has only played 121 defensive snaps so far. That's only 46% of the total defensive snaps as he rotates and splits times with Malcolm Rodriguez, Derek Barnes, and Alex Anzalone. However, in his limited role, Jack Campbell has totaled 17 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, a quarterback hit, a sack, as well as a pass defended. He is a player that is always getting to the ball on time, always filling the right gap, always forcing the run back into the teeth of the defense. And although he hasn't played the biggest role, although his box score numbers aren't incredible, I do think he's been a very productive and solid linebacker for the role he's been asked to play. And as he continues to grow, as he continues to figure things out, I do think his role will continue to expand more and more as the season goes on. And by the end of the year, I do think he could be a full-time starting inside linebacker for the Detroit Lions, potentially replacing Alex Anzalone, pairing up with Derek Barnes, and leading to a really strong trio or duo of NFL linebackers. Moving on to the third pick, Sam Laporta, the 34th pick in the 2023 NFL Draft. Sam Laporta is a guy that many people looked at as a poor pick at the time. You had Michael Mayer on the board. You didn't really need a tight end. You just traded away TJ Hockenson and essentially spent the pick you got for him on a tight end from the University of Iowa. But Sam Laporta has come out and done nothing but impress. In 27 targets, Sam Laporta has 22 receptions for 242 yards and a touchdown through the air. Sam Laporta actually leads all tight ends in the NFL in receiving yards, more than Travis Kelce, more than George Kittle, more than TJ Hockenson, more than Mark Andrews, more than Evan Ingram, who was the second leading tight end in the NFL. He is above all of them. Now, that is not to say, of course, he is necessarily better than all of them, but I do think Sam Laporta is the next great tight end in the NFL. And the Lions got this one 100% right at the time. He is producing far higher than Michael Mayer. He is just an incredible receiver. And as I said, leads all tight ends in the NFL in receiving yards going into week 5. He was a phenomenal pick, and although it was a little bit questionable at the time, looking back, this is one of those ones where you just got to clap your hands and say, Brad Holmes, well done, sir. The next pick is arguably the best pick in the NFL draft, that being, of course, Brian Branch, the 45th overall selection, the slot cornerback / safety from the University of Alabama, has been nothing but defensive rookie of the year worthy. Brian Branch has played in 4 games. He has 25 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, 4 passes defended, an interception, and a touchdown. If you took a look as a slot defender, took away the tackles, and you said that Brian Branch finished his rookie year with 3 tackles for loss, 4 passes defended, 1 interception, and a touchdown, I think a lot of people would say that's a pretty good rookie season for a second-round defensive back. That's what he did in the first month of play. He had a pick 6 off of Patrick Mahomes on the first game of his NFL career. He has been nothing but special. Against the Green Bay Packers, he was all over the field, but I think his best game came against the Atlanta Falcons, where he had 11 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, a pass defended, several big hits, several major tackles in the open field, and just continued over and over and over to show that he is the best player, arguably, on the Detroit Lions defense. He is arguably the best player in the Detroit Lions secondary, and that is saying a lot based on all the talent that they have acquired over the last couple of drafts. Brian Branch has been special. I believe he is currently leading and should be the favorite for NFL Defensive Rookie of the Year. And if he can stay healthy, stay on the field, and continue to produce, I have no doubt that he is going to be not only in the running, but will be the favorite for Defensive Rookie of the Year this season. Now, the third round is a little bit of a question mark still. And the third round for the Detroit Lions is historically, under Brad Holmes, one of those rounds where you have to wait and see. One of those rounds where your guy doesn't start until week 7, week 8, week 9. If there's an injury, they may start a little bit sooner. But these are guys like Kirby Joseph. These are guys like Amon-Ra St. Brown, who was drafted very early in the 4th. Derek Barnes, who was drafted very early in the 4th. Right? Ifeatu Melifonwu, who's faced a lot of injury concerns, but has looked really good in the time that he's played while being healthy. The third round for Brad Holmes is historically one of those ones where, you might not get a polished product. You might not get a guy that's going to contribute day one, but has the potential to become an absolute superstar. Kirby Joseph didn't make his first start until week 4. Amon-Ra St. Brown didn't really break out until week 10 or 11 of his rookie season. Ifeatu Melifonwu didn't really get to play a whole lot as a rookie and really hasn't been able to play a whole lot because of injuries. But when he's been on, like I said, he's been very impressive. Derek Barnes took a year or two to get on track, but now he is one of the best linebackers on the team and one of the biggest playmakers this defense has. And it's kind of the same way this year. Hendon Hooker has been on the NFI list after tearing his ACL last October. We are almost, I believe, a full year removed. We might be just 11 months removed from his ACL tear. He is officially on the NFI list, and there is no hurry to take him off. Teddy Bridgewater is a strong backup quarterback. Jared Goff is playing at a top 10 level right now. The Lions don't need Hendon Hooker to be healthy necessarily, but they're going to need him healthy for the future. They're going to want him to be ready to go next season. So I would assume, like Dan Campbell said, this is going to be one of those red shirt seasons. This is going to be one of those times where he just isn't going to play as a rookie, but he could be very impactful down the road as a potential developmental quarterback to take the helm from Jared Goff when his contract expires. And then Broderick Martin, the project nose tackle from Western Kentucky, has been a healthy scratch for pretty much every single game this year. He and Isaiah Buggs spent the first 2 games together on the sidelines for the Detroit Lions and were healthy scratches. Isaiah Buggs has since gotten a chance to start, but Broderick Martin is still sitting on the sidelines, sitting behind Benito Jones, sitting behind Isaiah Buggs, sitting behind Aleem McNeil and Levi Onwuzurike and John Kaminsky. Broderick Martin hasn't had a chance to break through. He hasn't had a chance to get on the field yet for the Detroit Lions. And I think we all kind of knew that this was going to be a developmental guy, right? This is all going to be a guy that probably won't start year 1, might not even play very much in year 1, but has the size, has the strength, and once he learns how to use his leverage and his weight to his advantage, this guy can be a top-tier nose tackle because he has all the measurements and weights to do so. But he is very raw. He is not necessarily the most polished product and is going to take a little bit of time to get caught up to speed. So the third round has a lot of question marks right now, but I think easily has the potential to be very impactful. This could be our potential starter for a long time in Hendon Hooker, and Broderick Martin could be a big part of the defense as guys age out, like potentially Isaiah Buggs, like potentially Benito Jones, or like, just bringing in another strong nose tackle can never really hurt your defense. Now, moving on to day 3 of the NFL draft, this is guys that a lot of people don't expect to play, and some people don't even expect to make the roster, and yet both of these players have had impactful plays for the Detroit Lions. Colby Sorsdale ended up playing 36 snaps versus the Seattle Seahawks. This is 36 offensive snaps, by the way. I do not believe this is counting special teams reps at all. This is just 36 snaps on the offensive line, protecting Jared Goff from the pass rush. Now, Colby Sorsdale has allowed 0 sacks and 0 penalties in those 36 snaps. He did allow a number of pressures versus the Seattle Seahawks, but did not allow a sack. Jared Goff got the ball out on time, and he did not commit a penalty. I think Colby Sorsdale is much better suited for a guard in the NFL. I don't think he necessarily has the quick step or the quickness in general to be a starting right tackle in the NFL, but I do think he has the power and run blocking ability as well as the fundamentals to be a really strong right guard, potentially the starting right guard of the future after Halapoulivaati Vaitai is out. But in his first NFL action, there was some good and there was some bad, as you would expect to see from a 5th round rookie from William and Mary. And then the last player we want to talk about today is, of course, Antoine Green, playing 36 snaps as well, actually, for the Detroit Lions and recording his first and only regular season catch in week 2 versus the Seattle Seahawks. A great day for the Detroit Lions late round picks. Now, Antoine Green has played, as I said, 36 snaps. That is just about 17% of the total offensive snaps for the Detroit Lions. However, his usage is going up week after week after week. He didn't play very much, if at all, versus the Kansas City Chiefs, had his first target and catch for 2 yards versus the Seattle Seahawks, played more versus the Atlanta Falcons, and then played even more versus the Green Bay Packers. And despite not getting very many reps, despite not getting very many targets or catches, he is out there. He is making an impact on the game. He is blocking hard for the Detroit Lions in the run game. He is running routes and adding a vertical threat that the offense or that the defense has to account for. Even though statistically he's not great, I think he's done a pretty good job as a 7th-round rookie, stepping in for where he's needed, playing the role that they need him to play, and doing it at a relatively high level. So with that being said, I think the Detroit Lions had a very strong draft. I said so at the time. I think that it's even more reinforced here. The Detroit Lions knocked this draft out of the park. I don't think they missed on a single pick so far, other than maybe Hendon Hooker and Broderick Martin. Other than that, every single rookie has contributed to this team. And for a draft that was touted as the worst positional value ever, as a draft that was touted as a bottom draft in the NFL by some, it turns out that Brad Holmes drafting football players over positional needs or valuable positions seems to be working out pretty well for the Detroit Lions. Jahmyr Gibbs is a playmaker. Jack Campbell is a really reliable rotational linebacker right now. Sam Laporta is arguably the most productive tight end in the NFL up to this point. Brian Branch is a front runner for Defensive Rookie of the Year, with Colby Sorsdale playing a key role on special teams and Antoine Green having a relatively large role for a 7th-round rookie so far, and probably continuing to get more and more reps as he continues to just be more impressive than some of the veteran wide receivers on the roster. This has been an incredibly successful draft already for the Detroit Lions and potentially is going to shape the future of this football team. I think we have a lot of future starters from this draft. I think we have a lot of future playmakers from this draft. I think this draft is going to shape and mold how people look at partially positional value, how people look at the draft. And looking back on it, I think the Detroit Lions draft looks better by the day, even though we all knew it was a great draft from the very beginning. So with all that being said, that is all for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching this video. Let me know down in the comments below what your initial grade for this draft was and what your new grade is. After a month of play, how do you feel like these rookies are doing? How would you regrade the NFL draft? And is there anything you would change in hindsight going back if you could? I'd be very curious what you guys have to say. But with all that being said, that is all for you guys today. Thank you all so much for watching. And until next time, and as always, go Lions.